I first heard the term Axis Mundi this summer from Reverend Craig Barnes while I was at the Chautauqua Institute. He described it using T.S. Eliot's phrase as, or defined it using T.S. Eliot's phrase as, the still point of the turning world. Axis Mundi. He was sharing and explaining that as pastors, using his language, an important part of our modeling and role is to help us all experience and know how to connect to that place, the still point of the turning world. My ears immediately perked up, as did my heart. I know that place, I thought to myself, though I didn't know the word. It's home. Reverend Barnes went on to talk a bit more about the Axis Mundi and how it's interconnected in different cultures and relations across time, different religions, different disciplines. It's a symbol of the axis between heaven and earth. So again, words, please. What I love about mantras, among many things, is that it's beautiful to not have an attached meaning to words, because boy, does that get in our way, right? So heaven and earth, I'll say more about this later, but imagine this, right, that we all live on a horizontal level. The horizontal level is things like talking here right now, being aware of what's happening around us. And there is also a vertical axis. There's also this axis mundi within us. And in different cultures, they'll talk about, connecting our roots into our ancestors in the earth, or connecting to the aspirational sense of above all pain and suffering as a place of unity in the heavens. So I invite you to set aside your understanding of words or preconceived notions and just let this speak to your heart. So this axis between heaven and earth, I left that particular service with a desire to know more about this. And what I learned fascinated me. As I said, Axis Mundi is talked about in most of the world religions, using different terms. Again, essentially is the connection between heaven and earth. It is incorporated into architecture. It is reflected in nature. It's woven through most cultures, including, for example, the Greek civilization. It is interconnected to and part of most disciplines and worldviews. In astronomy, Axis Mundi is the Latin term for the axis of the earth, between the celestial poles. In other places, it's called the tree of life. It's called the center of the earth, the world axis, the world pillar. It is portrayed in Da Vinci's painting, The Vitruvian Man. That's what that is. I didn't know that. Some cultures describe it as a cosmic mountain. In Japan, it's Mount Fuji. In the Old Testament, it was Mount Zion. Mount Olympus in Greek mythology, the Black Hills from the Sioux. Other cultures visualize the Axis Mundi as a column or a pillar, while others see it as an image, as I said, of a tree. Hindus call it the fig tree in the Upanishads, while in Buddhism it is the Bodhi tree under which the Buddha attained enlightenment. It has been explained that the tree is understood to be the reconciliation of macrocosm and microcosm. It's interesting to study, very interesting, how this Axis Mundi shows up in various religions and cultures. The question, however, really, at least for this moment in time, is why does that matter? What does it have to do with interconnectedness and mindfulness? What does it have to do with our day-to-day lives, other than being potentially intellectually very interesting? And if it matters, how do we find it and experience it ourselves. That's why I'm bringing it forward. It matters, according to Craig Barnes, T.S. Eliot, and many, many others, because, and now I'll use my words, because we all are revolving around something. All of us in our lives are revolving around something. Walt Whitman said everyone worships something. Again, there are various ways to articulate this. Our lives may revolve around fear, materialism, concern about external situations. Our lives may revolve around a person. These things, all of which are part of our conscious and unconscious mind and belief system, can be inherited. How many of us learn, oh, I'm responding exactly the way others in my family had responded? They can be intentional, largely and often until we really bring awareness to it, part of mindfulness. They aren't necessarily something we're aware of. Belief systems, including our axis mundi, what we're revolving around, can be helpful and they can be not so helpful. So I encourage all of us to just sit with and be curious and watch yourself with that observing mind. What is it? Or probably many things, but what are the things I am revolving my life around? Avoiding pain, doing good, helping people, looking good, feeling good, a particular person we think we can't live without. The challenge with revolving our lives around, and again, think of this as a core. This is not what is important and matters. This is about what literally my meaning and my days and my life revolve around. The challenge with revolving our lives around fear or ephemeral things that will pass, including a person, or anything other than the truth within us is that they will all at some time fail us or leave us. And this is very much of a both and. This is in no way am I saying that these things are not also important. Doing good, loving people, caring and loving and be devoted to a human being or many, to this church, right? All those things matter so much. And as a dear friend of mine said to me, we are born alone or within ourselves. We are born and we die that way. Change is the only constant. So the axis mundi is the place within us that will never, ever leave us, as long as we are alive, at least. And conversations about anything beyond that is another conversation, whether it's the universe or energy or heaven. But we know that at least for as long as we are alive, it will never leave us. This is part of why people will say, oh, what is, like, wherever you go, there you are. I moved to find the meaning of my life. And then I moved again. Then I moved again. Because it's most of all inside of us. It is the place that will never leave us as long as we are alive. It is always present. This is the good news. It is always there. It is accessible and it's unblemished. No one can wound this or hurt this to the point that it cannot no longer be whole. It's the resonance of our true self. Some people call it our soul. The axis mundi is also called the deeper self, the no self, the transcendent self. Even in psychology today, internal family systems, which understands humans as a complex web of interconnected parts of ourself, calls it the self with a capital S. Again, the key is to be able to access it, feel it, become conscious of it, and return to it again and again as we also live in and amongst our life and all the other things that matter. And paradoxically, and I said weeks ago, paradox is a hugely important mindset to actually live in a deep appreciation of interconnectedness, right? It's that multiple truths coexist. Paradoxically, the deeper and more genuinely we connect with our internal axis mundi, the more we are connected to others and the world around us. I didn't always know I had an axis mundi. I certainly didn't know how to connect with it. I also didn't believe there was a part of me or a place within me that no one and nothing could harm. Finding that took decades. Many paths leading to this ultimate connection. It is well worth everything it took. And I'll share just briefly a turning point in my own journey. About 4 years ago, I had injured my back and needed to take a break from the yoga I'd done for decades, which was more of sort of a power yoga, because I revolved myself around beliefs in a particular cultural beliefs. And so because I couldn't do that, I began to explore Kundalini yoga. Now this yoga includes breath work, the use of sound, mantra, hand gestures, which are mudras. It doesn't really burn many calories, most likely. And again, my revolution at that time was much more about external things. But the gift that the universe offered me was that I had no choice. If I wanted to practice yoga, I was going to have to go into this new school of yoga. I started it and never left, and I can't tell you the gifts it has given me because it has allowed me to find that center, vertical axis, this axis mundi within me. In that practice, I found my voice, literally. As some of you may know or remember, I play the harmonium, an Indian musical instrument. Sound, in my case, it is through Garamukhi, which is through the Sikh or Sikh tradition, which we'll have a service about in November. Words I didn't understand the meaning of, the sounds that have brought me to a place of love and connection and joy that is hard to put words to. So again, the vertical dimension. So Eckhart Tolle says, you enter this vertical dimension by becoming present. As you become present, the stream of thinking subsides and it's replaced with awareness. You know who you are, but that's it. And that's all you need to know. If we can access that for a moment, a few times a day, it will change our experience of what it means to be here. Sound is certainly not the only path to connect with this. You may resonate. Athletes can find it in their sport. Gardeners in gardening, others in stillness or quiet. Some people have mystical experiences where the veil of illusion of separateness is dropped. A friend of mine talks about being on the subway in New York City, and for this moment that lasted about 2 minutes, all that went away, and she was overcome by realizing we are all connected in ways that normally are not visible. Some people have those experiences. Great joy, laughter, and play can also connect us to this still point within us. Babies can connect us, puppies. And something many people don't talk about, times of great tragedy, crisis, pain, also can bring us to that experience of stillness within us. People will say to me, somehow I knew it was going to be okay. Or they talk about how time stands still and they felt a peace in the middle of the worst atrocity or tragedy. So whatever or however this happens, accessing our own access mundi requires us to override, set down our thinking, so that we may experience or know this place of wholeness and interconnection. As we detach from others and all we believe we know, we find our home, the still point in a turning world, as T.S. Eliot said. We realize for a moment there is nothing that must be done. And from there, everything happens. And once we find that place, we can always return to it again and again. And we begin to live, truly live, and be present in this interconnected world, internally and externally, of which we are an essential part. In that moment of connection, we realize there's nothing to be done, and everything happens. May it be so. Amen.